But you fuck with me, guaranteed to hold ball of wax. Look forward to hearing from you too.
Plot thickens.
Now, in today's breakdown, we are going to be discussing all things Unique, Kanan, and Breeze. This business partnership that we're about to see unfold in Season 5 of Raising Kanan, how it works, what it could look like, what they could learn from Unique, how it sets the stage for Breeze and Kanan to take over, and there definitely will be a lot of mind games and a lot of manipulation involved as well. We have to remember who's sitting at the top of the tree at this moment in time, who's sitting on the throne even though they do say they are retired, so they say. It's Snaps and Pop. So if they're at the top running things, moving the chess pieces, in control over the drug game and everybody that's playing in Queens at this particular moment in time, if they're the ones who have everybody on strings, if they're the ones who have formed this partnership between Unique, Kanan, and Breeze, they're the ones who are in control. And we know in power, control is everything. You need to be able to control your mind. That's number one, in my particular opinion. You need to be able to control your mind, your organization, relationships, business partnerships, and the relationships with your family. Erica Woods did an interview during Season 4 and she said the following: I admire some of the things that Rock has built, but knowing that she doesn't have full control over her son gives me an abnormal advantage. I don't respect people that don't have their house in order, and I view Rock as not having a house in order. And that's one of many reasons why Snaps and Pops sit at the top at this moment in time, with Unique, Kanan, and Breeze soon to be running things underneath them as a big revenue stream. But I do think we all know how this works by now. Things will definitely take a very dark turn, and that's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown. Unique, Kanan, and Breeze. The chess games, the manipulation, and eventually them moving Unique out the way to set the stage for Power Origins. Now, just on a quick side note, speaking of Power Origins, there have been a couple of posts from 50 Cent over on social media. He posted a shot of Young Ghost and Tommy, and there have also been a couple of BTS shots kind of floating around on social media as well. But the main thing I found very interesting was his caption. On 2 of his posts, he mentioned that this is going to be on our screen for 5 years. Now, we always do have to take 50 Cent with a pinch of salt. We can never tell when he's serious or not, but I do actually believe Power Origins could genuinely be on our screens for 5 years. You look at the story that they could tell with a young Ghost and Tommy. They've also now cast a young Tasha as well. Who knows whether they intend to cast other younger characters like Roller later on. But if you take it to 5 years, they would probably get pretty close to the timeline of original Power. And with that, you'd probably see the formation or the introduction of crews such as the Soldado Nation, the RSKs, the Tainos. I mean, they could do a lot in 5 years, and it doesn't sound too much of a stretch either when you consider Raising Kanan will go 5 seasons by the time that comes to an end later on this year. So 5 years, 5 seasons for Power Origins, definitely very plausible, gets me excited because of the story they can tell in that amount of time. With Young Ghost and Tommy as well, I'm sure a lot of us will stay tuned in right to the end. But of course, it definitely starts here with Raising Kanan Season 5 first, the removal of the old guard, that then transitions us into Power Origins. So with that being said, let's get back into it.
The money and the work, the more we got, the more we seen it just was never gonna be enough. Ain't never gonna fix what's wrong. Maybe we all lost. And maybe we ain't never gonna be found.
Now, towards the end of Season 5, we did see Unique approaching Snaps and Pop to make them a proposition. At that moment in time, he was attacking Rock's organization. She was getting weaker while Unique was getting stronger, and his proposition was for Snaps and Pop to back him. At that moment in time, Snaps and Pop had a nice little revenue stream coming in from Kanan, but Unique put it in a way where imagine how much they could make if they were to back Unique. That would put a lot of money in Snaps and Pop's back pocket by backing the right horse. Whether we think backing Unique is the right horse is probably irrelevant. We can debate Unique versus Rock all day long, but you have to look at it from Snaps and Pops' point of view. The quote that I read to you at the beginning, they don't respect Rock, they don't think she has a house in order, and by the looks of it towards the end of Season 4, her business wasn't in order either. And at the end of the day, in this particular business especially, Snaps and Pop are all about that money and control. They don't get involved in the day-to-day business of getting their hands dirty. Apart from when it came to Pop killing Crystal, I think if the situation calls for it, they definitely would strap up. But they definitely were more than happy to back Unique in that situation because it benefits them. It's always about business, money, power, and control. Now, a bit later on, we then saw Breeze's introduction where we heard Snaps mention this in terms of teaming up with Unique.
Nick said y'all talked about the possibility of linking up.
Pop and I think that it's an ideal arrangement for all parties involved.
He mentioned it was the ideal arrangement. They have their own connect and transportation, and being OGs in the game, I'm sure they've got a lot of resources, connections, and alliances. But Snap spoke about how if they were to team up with Unique, this partnership of Unique, Kanan, and Breeze, then together, they can corner the market.
We want a bigger piece of the pie out on Southside Jamaica, a portion befitting our appetite. We bring together you and Unique, and then connect you with our nephew. We could corner the market.
They can take over the gap in the market where Rock is struggling, because let's be real, she really is in a vulnerable position like Erica Woods mentioned, which is all in a hypothetical that Rock is still alive, by the way, which I do think she is. But you look at her relationship with her son, which is non-existent. Her relationship with Jukebox is also showing signs of being at breaking point. Her businesses where she was moving her product were burned down by Unique. She had constant issues with her transportation throughout season 4, and she's now also lost that. So Snaps and Pop are looking at this situation thinking, chaos creates opportunity, and this is the moment where they can corner the market. Now, we've already spoken about Snaps and Pops' gain. We know what they stand to gain if they do put these three together, but the bigger plan is probably to eventually move Unique out the way when it's the right moment.
Unique most definitely down with this crime. Plus, he got the Italian connect, so we gonna need him.
At least in the short term. But again, that's a conversation for another time.
Snaps and Pop no doubt have a short-term game plan for Unique. Get the operation up and running, bring Kanan and Breeze into the operation, take the territory in Queens, use him to bring Kanan and Breeze along until they no longer need him, which again is backed up by something Wendell Pierce mentioned, who plays Snaps, and this is what they mentioned. The minute someone is no use to us, we'll cut them loose, one way or another. If someone gets too messy, too immature, we'll cut them off. It's not worth interrupting our flow. Now, this is what I do think eventually will happen to Unique. We have to remember Unique is a character who will still probably be suffering from his brain injury that he suffered way back in season 3 from Ronnie. He does look a bit more like the Unique we know and recognize from before, but that doesn't change the fact he probably still is going to be a little mentally unstable. And when you are mentally unstable, when you've got that anger built up inside you, you can be a little bit reckless and messy. And well, we know what Snaps and Pop think about people who are reckless and messy. They're all about business, they're all about money. Don't mess with their money and keep your shit clean. You just take a look at what they did with Famous and Crystal. But regardless of all of that, even before things even get messy in season 5, which no doubt they will, however it happens, whatever happens, we know things can get very messy in this game, and it's the final season as well. We have to take that into consideration. So shit definitely will hit the fan. But regardless of all of that, before it's even occurred, before this business partnership has even started, Snaps and Pop are already talking about using Unique until they no longer need him. Using Unique to build this organization, take Queens, and then get rid of him. Like Wendell Pierce said, the minute someone is no use to us, we'll cut them loose, one way or another. They're already thinking about cutting Unique loose, and I do think it will happen. I do think the writing is on the wall for Unique in season 5 in some shape or form, and I do actually think the big scalp could be from either Kanan or Breeze themselves. But just before that happens, before Unique inevitably bites the dust, however he does, there are a few things we need to consider. Number 1, has this conversation opened Kanan's eyes to who Snaps and Pop really are? The fact they were here telling Kanan you'll be here teaming up with Unique until he's no longer useful, with Kanan then giving this kind of look where he was thinking, wait, what? Is he now beginning to realize who these guys really are? Because let's not forget, he was also questioning them early on in episode 10.
What you thinking, because I'm young, you can control me or some shit?
On the contrary, your youth is your greatest asset.
He definitely also do well to remember Rock did warn him way back early on in season 4. Snaps and Pop haven't got to the position that they've got to without dropping a hell of a lot of bodies. I do think Kanan needs to think long and hard about who these guys are, what they've said and how they've been manipulating him, even though it isn't exactly easy to see for Kanan. At this moment in time, if they're happy to betray Kanan when he's no longer useful, what about Kanan? What can they do to him later on? Or is it the fact that Unique is actually the type of character who in the long term can't really work under Snaps and Pop? I do think we need to consider in the long term, he's someone who probably can't be controlled as easily as someone like Kanan. Irrespective of the head injury, I do think his head injury does make things worse, but regardless, he is someone who definitely can't be controlled in the long term. Whereas with Kanan, they're probably thinking they can. He's younger, easily manipulated, they've already poured petrol on the fire with his relationship with Rock, they've got rid of Famous, got rid of Crystal, they have Kanan right where they want him, they've got him on strings at this moment in time. Whereas with Unique, I don't think they can control and manipulate him as much as they can with Kanan. Maybe that's the thinking with using Unique until he's no longer useful. But that's number one. Has this conversation kind of sparked Kanan into kind of questioning and thinking who Snaps and Pop really are and what they're capable of? Now, number two, we do also have to consider the partnership of Unique, Kanan, and Breeze, what it would actually look like and how it would work, because I really do believe Kanan could learn a thing or two from Unique. When you look at previous characters coming up in the game, taking Tariq as an example from Power and Power Book 2 Ghost, who would have been a very similar age to a young Kanan. He wasn't just mentored by Kanan in Power, he was mentored by Tasha, Tommy, he had traits of Ghost, but you could even say characters like Dre played a role in his development. You could say characters like Davis McLean also played a role in his development as well. Same thing for the younger Kanan. It's not just Rock, Snaps, Pop, and Ronnie who will influence Kanan. You're now going to have the influence of Unique. I do think they can also cause a lot of damage together as well. You saw how Unique looked at him at the end of Season 4. Their interaction, you could tell he actually liked the bite that Kanan had. Back in Season 1, he even tried to recruit Lou to his organization. And no doubt he'd also be thinking the one way to actually hurt Rock is to bring Kanan on board. Start working with Kanan and pull him even further away from Rock. However, on this particular relationship with Breeze, Breeze may actually be a character who's kind of further along than someone like Kanan. Are those two characters who can actually work well together, which is Breeze and Unique, or will they clash because they're two kind of similar profiles? We don't even know what Breeze is like at this moment in time, but we can tell he's going to be a very clever chess player, but they haven't even scratched the surface with his character just yet. Unique and Breeze could be two characters who could genuinely clash, go back and forth, which creates tension early on and throughout Season 5, right up until the end where Breeze perhaps gets rid of Unique. That's number two. Their business partnership, Kanan being mentored, and him learning from Unique before they eventually take him out. Will this partnership be plain sailing smooth, or will there be a personality clash within their new form partnership? And that brings me over to number three, manipulation and mind games. There can only be one man on the throne come the end, and a lot of manipulation and games will be played during this final season. For example, how Snaps and Pop have plans to use Unique until he's no longer useful. But let's flip the script. What if Kanan does find out Snaps and Pop were the ones behind Famous and Crystal's death? Could he give Unique the heads up that Snaps and Pop plan to get rid of him, in essence using Unique to take out Snaps and Pop and do his dirty work for him? Which then has Breeze wanting revenge on Unique for killing his uncle and aunt, which leads him to taking out Unique. That's just one of many scenarios that we could genuinely see in Season 5. There are so many ways this could genuinely go, but it's just an example that goes to show you the devastation the level of manipulation could actually cause in this final season, which changes everything heading into Power Origins. Because make no mistake, going into Power Origins, there does need to be a clearing of the chessboard in Queens. There does need to be somewhat of a reset, and we do know what half that reset already is. We know Breeze and Kanan are going to be taking over. We know they do eventually bring a young Ghost and Tommy on board as well, where for a few years they're running things. But the other half, which we have no idea of before we get to Power Origins, is what happens to these guys in between. What happens to Snaps and Pop? What happens with the Thomases? What happens with the Italians? What happens with Unique? Because in my opinion, the old guard definitely have to make way for the new young up and coming drug dealers. And manipulation, these chess games will be played by everyone, from Snaps and Pop right through to the Thomas family to Kanan and Breeze. There are of course a lot of other elements to Unique's story arc in Season 5. There's the war with Rock, there's also the fact she was actually carrying Unique's baby at some point, which she got rid of. Could that pop up in a conversation between the two? There's Panessa and Jerome. We know he does get Panessa back, but is he able to keep them safe? In my opinion, there's only one option here. Give her a bag of money and send her out of town where nobody can find her. There's the alliance with Akbar, the guys from Trenton, and also the connection to Phil Russo, where you'd have to assume he'd probably be killed very early on. There's definitely a lot more to Unique story arc than just this business partnership with Kanan and Breeze. It's just one element of a bigger picture. But when push comes to shove, this is what I think will eventually be his downfall. I do personally think it will be very two big egos in the same room with Breeze and Unique, and it's going to lead to a very kind of feisty confrontation, clash between the two, and a very decisive moment at some point in Season 5. Breeze and Kanan getting some big scalps and moving some major players out the way so they can then take over, which then transitions us into Power Origins. With that being said, drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.